Welcome back to Strange Form. Today we're going to be looking at, well, me to a certain degree. Why did I decide to nix the mask? Well, after reviewing the YouTube algorithm for quite some time, I began to realize that, unfortunately, though there's a large part of the audience that really does like these theatrics, there's an even larger part of the audience that is deeply freaked out by it. So, I've decided to go au naturel. And now you can put a face to the voice. Now, without the mask, I'm going to be doing the exact same thing I've been doing before, but hopefully I'm going to be able to garner a larger audience, as maybe I'm more accessible now. So, it's the end of an era, but the beginning of a new one. Originally, I was going to do this at around 5,000 or 10,000 subscribers, but right now I'm close enough, so here I am. Now, what is this video going to be about? It's going to be about the fact that I've sold maybe 80% of my entire Alien collection. I wanted to let you guys know which figures were too valuable for me to let go of. What figures I found to be just the most important to me as a collector. Now, I did keep almost 10 or 20% of my collection after selling off almost everything. And so what I wanted to do here was show you what I kept and explain a little bit of why I kept it. Some of the things were simply because I liked them, others because I felt they were completely irreplaceable, and a few just because I had grown sort of accustomed to them. So what does the ultimate Alien fan who spent a good deal of his life getting every single figure that was out there actually hold on to? Well, let's start with the one that sits at my desk, and that's the Kyoto Super Sofubi. This one is one of those ones, like I was talking about, that I simply hung on to because of growing accustomed to it. It was one of those figures that just sort of sat at the side of my desk and became a mascot. You know, the kind of thing that you sit at your desk and you look over at and you're like, things aren't that bad. And I enjoy this one. And I have a few trinkets at my desk. As a matter of fact, let me know in the comments section what things you guys put at your desk that you really enjoy. Things that you look over at and they either bring some nostalgia or just sort of make you happy. But the Super Sofubi is sort of like a Godzilla figure, in that it's a large vinyl tail-dragging monster. And like I said, I really actually appreciate the design. It's not completely accurate, but it's fun and big, and balances nicely, so it's not constantly falling over. And as you know, I've done an entire episode about this one, so if you want to know more about it, you can watch that one. Here's the link. Next up, in the 6 to 8 inch posable realm, I only hung on to 4, and those 4 are the Mezco. Now, the reason for the Mezco was that this one is already starting to degrade a little bit, and I just didn't feel comfortable selling it, making it somebody else's problem. So I hung on to this one as well as the white one. So for better or worse, I still have both of the Mezcos. Next I have the Medicom Mafex number 84. I love this one, and I know that some people have had problems with it being fiddly or falling apart, but I never did. This is actually a good copy. It's meant to be treated a little more like a model, but it's actually a really great figure, and the paint job is amazing. It was difficult to procure, and it's one of those ones that I think would be too much of a pain to pick up again, so I decided to keep this one. Next, we have the only NECA figure that I ended up keeping. I had every single one, every Big Chap that NECA had ever done, and I sold all of them, all less this one. And the reason I didn't end up selling this one was that I absolutely love the paint scheme. This is the newer anniversary HR Giger version, and the combination of the semi-translucents and the gray paint scheme made it a no-brainer for me to keep. So this is the only NECA one I really wanted in my collection to show off. That being said, in the larger scale, I did actually keep all of those figures, but we'll get to that in a second. Last, we have Takayuki Takeya's Figma 10th anniversary figure. I kept this one because it's so odd. It's the weird one of the group, and it's such a strange design, which I'll talk about in a second, because I actually kept a few things from Takayuki Takeya. And again, this one was actually for nostalgic reasons. Now, of all the small ones, like the Hayatoy figures, I did sell all of those. So this is probably the smallest Big Chap I currently own. It may not be hyperposable, but it is actually such a great exaggerated design. So again, I held on to this one because I like Takayuki Takeya's work. But that's it for the smaller realm. These are the only posable figures I kept. Everything else was sold. And if you want to know how much was in that Alien lot that I sold something like 190 figures and toys. Many of them I will miss, but again, I have to keep the lights on, and this was to keep the channel running. Since we are on the subject of Mr. Takayuki Takeya, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Alien Pile. I had been in love with this one since I was a young man and saw it in Hobby Japan. I always loved the nature of Takayuki Takeya's ability to create something even more exaggerated and alien from Giger's design. So this was at the top of my list for a long time, especially the ivory version, which is this. And this is actually very difficult to find for an affordable price. Most of these were going for hundreds of dollars, if not close to $1,000. And so finding one at a really good price using my Japanese auction hack, I had to snag this one, and I couldn't bear to let it go, at least not for the price I was going to get for it in this current market. So this is another one I held on to. Again, probably more out of nostalgia than anything else, and the fact that I'm probably not going to be able to pick this one up anytime soon for an affordable price. So this one got to stay in my collection. I also kept the tall Takayuki Takeya singular figure, which is another one that's featured in the Japanese auction video. So if you get a chance, watch this one as well, as it'll tell you how to bid on things in Japan, and you'll get to see this one and the other one showcased. Now, if you watched my Real Action Heroes episode, you'll remember that this was the last one that Medicom did in that line. And I really enjoyed this one, and I ended up selling all the rest of them, which I kind of regret. It was nice to have the entire crew, but this one was one that was so difficult to hunt down and is so expensive right now that I really just couldn't bear to have it out of my collection. So I did end up hanging on to this one. And again, the market being what it is, some of these I just wasn't going to get a price that I think was fair. And so I ended up just holding on to them until maybe the market heals. Maybe in the future I will be able to part with this one, but right now, one of the things I love about it is that it's a slightly posable version of the Roswell statue with that splayed hand Nosferatu look. And this is one of those ones that's so difficult to hunt down that once you get it in your collection, it's sort of a talking piece. So like I said, maybe a little bit of nostalgia and maybe a little bit of the fact that I really do enjoy this. I just don't want to know the person who would get rid of alien dinosaurs. A Xenomorph queen and a big chap dinosaur is about the coolest thing you could imagine. These were so weird, and they didn't set me back that much, so they were something that I actually really wanted to hang on to, and ended up just keeping them. If you have a chance to pick these up, they are extremely well painted, and the sculpt is pretty incredible. You can see them featured in my top 10 strangest alien figures, as these definitely fit that countdown. The Marmot Big Chap A model. I did end up actually getting rid of the Marmot B, which I liked, but not as much as this one, as it's in the classic bowing pose. Now, this is actually my placeholder for the 1/3 Mamagora Amazing Work statue. That's the one that I'd really love to have in my collection, but $3,000 is not in my budget right now, so this little guy is going to have to suffice. And this is the one I actually prefer to display next to Hot Toys Ripley, as it's in 1/6 scale, and it actually looks really good next to her with the cat. Like I said in the other video, the details are a little bit mushy, but overall the accuracy is great, and the proportions are amazing. And they went as far as to carve little details from the suit, like around the waist, which I thought was a really nice touch. And again, I don't think I was going to get as much for it as I would have liked, and so this is another one that I ended up just hanging on to, largely because I like how it displays next to Ripley. Next up, we have the Hot Toys figures. Not just this one, as many of you know my feelings about the Hot Toys Big Chap and its inaccuracies, and that they really could have done better, but I hung on to the entire collection, as I don't really think I'm going to be able to find many of those older Hot Toys in the condition that I have. They're all in perfect condition, none of them have disintegrating joints, and that's something that was very difficult to hunt down. And I had to send many of them back, even to Japan, in order to get the ones that actually had all of the parts and weren't broken. So the Hot Toys ones being something that I don't think I'll see again in my lifetime, I decided to hold on to them. Here's a link to the episode that explores all of these in great detail. But like I said, hung on to all of the Hot Toys, lest one, I did end up selling the Alien Girl. And that was because I didn't really feel that that was a part of this whole thing. It was just sort of a kitschy fan service one that I didn't care for that much, and really I only bought that one and the Predator counterpart in order to do that inflatable pool scene, which I just thought was hilarious. But now that I've done that, I have no more need for it, and it's not something I'm going to display, so I didn't see any purpose in having it boxed up and put away. Now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty, the last few things that I hung on to, and really the things that meant the most to me. One of those was NECA's 1/4 scale figures, and I mean all 5 of them. I hung on to the entire collection. That's the first, second, the translucent version, the 4th version of the Big Chap that's in the classic Kenner box, as well as the Alien Warrior I really enjoy. So those are the ones from NECA that I hung on to, and hope that NECA someday brings us more 1/4 scale Alien figures. I would absolutely love to see the Alien Romulus figure in that scale, as well as, of course, the Runner Alien. Next up, the Kotobukiya Alien statue. This one may not be huge like other statues from Prime 1 and many other amazing studios, but it is one of the most accurate Big Chap figures ever made, and still to this day is the #1 on my list of top 10 Big Chap figures. And I didn't just hold on to this one, I held on to the other 2 Kotobukiya figures that they did in this line. So that's the Alien Warrior and the Runner Alien. So I don't think that this one will ever leave my collection unless somebody offered me a fortune, much more than it's going for on eBay. And that's around $300 to $400. This one is definitely worth picking up if you can get it for a deal, and boy did I ever get it for a deal. As I stated in the episode about these figures, I walked into a comic book store that was going out of business, and they just had one right there on the wall, and the guy sold it to me for about $60. So I got an incredible deal, and I'm not going to look that gift horse in the mouth. I will hang on to it probably till my dying days and then be buried with it. So this is my favorite, lest one, and that's the next one. And of course the last one is the OG, the Kenner Alien. Though this is a reproduction box, the figure inside is gradable. It is in absolutely immaculate condition. It's perfect. I got it from a Japanese auction site from a collector who had actually just sat it in a display case for the last 40 years. So from the rubber bands and the arms, all the way down to the inner mouth and the dome, it's in absolutely perfect condition. It's never played with, and even the inner paint in the dome still glows in the dark. So this thing would be absolutely heartbreaking for me to get rid of, especially because it's one of those ones where I had been hunting for it nearly my entire life. As a child, I always saw it at Toys R Us. I wanted it. My parents were like, no, it's from an R-rated movie. It's too grotesque. And they didn't want to buy it. But my dad did see a huge pallet of these marked down to almost nothing, $1 something. And he almost picked up several just to save for later, but he decided not to. And that put me on a lifelong quest of trying to find this thing. And it just was nowhere. It was impossible to find before eBay. And even then, it goes for nearly $1,000 in this condition. So being able to pick it up for just under $200 was absolutely a once-in-a-lifetime thing. And it's something that I will probably never get a chance to do again. So I decided not to sell this one, even though I probably could get a pretty good price for it. Now, that brings me to the end of my list of things that I kept and didn't let go of. Except for maybe one, which was I kept all of the Muscle figures. I really liked Muscle when I was young and thought it was really cool to see these. And I picked up some of the other Muscle figures as well, like the Robotech ones. So these I hung on to. To me, they're sort of a decoration, as I have them all hung on my wall. But beyond that, the entire collection you've seen in the photos is gone. And to anybody who participated in the sale, thank you. You actually helped the channel keep running for a few more months. And to the parties that bought the lion's share of the collection, thank you, and I hope that you enjoy all of these pieces. To those of you who want to know what's going to happen going forward, well, I'm going to keep pushing at this until something stops me. So for the time being, I'm going to try to bring new videos as often as I can. And to those wondering if this really is strange form, well, remember, never stop collecting.